G'day guys, this is Tyrone and welcome back to another Fallout 76 build video. This one is going to be all about my Bloodied stealth commando, which I have aptly named the Operative. If you want to easily navigate and skip to the parts of the video that matter most to you, then feel free to use the timestamps in the description. They will also be on screen detailing everything this video covers for your convenience. Also, I will have a link to this build via the Nukes and Dragons website so that you can easily reference that alongside this video if you need help building this for yourself. Also, friendly reminder that this build can be easily constructed via the special perk loadout machine found at train stations and can become one of your many builds whenever you feel like it, so long as you have the perk cards, as you can see on screen. So feel free to experiment. I will also have a link to my build playlists if you want to check out any of my other builds. Anyways guys, a summary of what this build is. It's literally the best DPS build in the game right now with the current meta. There is no other legitimate build that can outmatch the DPS potential of a properly crafted, VATS-orientated stealth commando. I have again taken the liberty of designating this build's strengths and weaknesses into a star rating system. This is what I will be doing with all of my builds from now on, so that you can see if this is something that you want to work towards. Anyways, as I said, this build is a stealth commando that will be utilizing the low health Bloodied playstyle to achieve a multitude of bonuses. Our goal with this build is to try and min-max towards being as stealthy as conceivably possible, as well as dealing as much damage as we possibly can. These two factors will be our keys to success, as we have no focus whatsoever on survivability or tanking potential, because if your character has the maximum amount of sneak potential, then you will never have the need to defend yourself or resist enemy attacks. As you've no doubt seen in my many videos and streams with this build, you can just sneak on by any enemy you see fit, or you can empty your magazine and drop them all in an instant. The choice is yours. But the particular benefits that come with this build if you follow everything to the letter are as follows. You will be able to deal a critical strike every second shot in VATS. You'll have maximum sneak potential, terrifically low VATS AP cost usage on all of your automatic weapons, insanely fast AP regen, and finally, the best DPS you can possibly muster in this game. And do keep in mind, this build is not for the newer players. This is something to work towards for when you reach the end game and have yourself well and truly situated. Now that I've said pretty much everything I need to for the intro, let's get into the actual build. So for starters, as always, we are going to be checking out the special stats first. Forewarning, I have made use of 3 legendary special cards and fully ranked them up. To be clear, you can play this build without using any of them, but I have found some pretty specific uses for them to min-max this playstyle to its fullest potential without making any sacrifices anywhere else in the build. Basically, without the legendary special perks, you will be less effective and have less freedom with your regular perk choices, so that part is up to you to grind out, obviously. But I'll explain that part when we get to it. At base value, this build will have the following special stats: 2 strength, 15 perception, 3 endurance, 6 charisma, 3 intelligence, 15 agility, and 12 luck. That is what you'll need to start off with if you want to build this for yourself. As I mentioned previously, I have taken 3 legendary perk cards. If we take those into account, then my luck, intelligence, and endurance get increased by 5, meaning intelligence should be 8, endurance should also be 8, and luck should be 17 with the legendary perk cards taken into consideration. Now the reason we have done this is actually very important. Firstly, we have lowered our luck at base value to 12 and then increased it to 17 via the legendary perk card, so that we can have the ability to activate a critical every second shot without sacrificing any usable perk points. I'll explain that in detail more, but doing it this way, the way I've done here, allows us to sacrifice the least amount of special points possible so that we can still make use of them elsewhere in the build. Now with that all covered, this is a Bloodied build after all, so that means I should show you what your special stats should look like once everything is said and done, when you have the base special all finished, as well as all the legendary perk cards equipped, and while you're low health and wearing a full set of unyielding armor. As well as having the correct mutations equipped, you should have the following: 14 strength, 37 perception, 8 endurance, 21 charisma, 19 intelligence, 37 agility, and most importantly, 33 luck, which is the magic number we need to deal a critical every second shot in VATS when combined with max rank of critical savvy. And we have achieved 33 luck by firstly having 12 base luck like I mentioned earlier, then having unyielding armor, which will take us up to 27 when we're at low health, then with shielded raider armor we will be sitting at 28 luck, And finally, with maxed out legendary luck, that will bring us up to 33. This allows us to make use of the 3 out of 5 perk points that legendary luck gives us, and is constantly active while you're at low health, so we don't have to worry about losing this benefit, and we also don't have to sacrifice anything else that would give us a combat advantage. There are many other ways that you can get 33 luck, but this by far is what I've found to be the most beneficial and least wasteful. It's always active, we don't have to worry about going to a fortune teller to get bonus luck that way, we don't have to worry about wearing the shielded vault suit to get luck that way. We can be at max combat potential and constantly have 33 luck. But by all means, if you have a different way that you prefer to get to 33 luck, then go for it, man. This is just the way I do it. I like getting to 33 luck on all my builds via this method, and it's been insanely effective for me. So now I'm going to show you guys the perks. This is what gives the build its power, and like I said at the start, the point of this build is to min-max towards having as much DPS with our automatic weapons as we possibly can, and to also min-max our stealth potential so that we may never get detected. Choosing to min-max towards stealth potential instead of tanking or just outright survivability is a unique way to play the game. If you go all out on the stealth, then you will never get detected using this build, ever. And you will never have to spend a stimpak to heal yourself. Although this does mean that if you do ever get detected by pure uncontrollable circumstances, then you will be highly susceptible to dying, obviously. So this is a very high risk, high reward playstyle, as you've no doubt seen with a lot of other YouTubers playing with this playstyle. Anyways, let's get into the build. So yes, here we are with the perks. You can take a quick screenshot right here, right now if you do want to use it for later reference, or you can visit the Nukes and Dragons website down below in the description to get a clearer understanding and what level you get all these perks, etc, etc. Anyway, I'm going to quickly explain each perk individually and why I use it. Anyways, firstly we're going to be using the Bandolier perk. Obviously we're going to be using this because we're a commando, we have a lot of ammo on us and we burn through it like crazy. So having it weigh 90% less is going to help tremendously with our weight efficiency and our carry weight in general. All of our ammo is going to weigh virtually nothing, only a few pounds here and there. Next up we're going to be taking all 3 ranks of Commando, Master, Expert and the regular one. All of these together will give us plus 60% extra damage for our automatic rifle weapons, which is obviously what we're using, so that's kind of a no-brainer, we're going to pick those up. Then next up we're going to be taking max rank of Tank Killer. Getting this will give us 36% armor penetration against all of our enemies while we're using our rifles, and a 9% chance to stagger. This is just, you need this, okay? Armor penetration is so important in this game, you have no idea. Taking Tank Killer is a must-have, especially if your goal is to deal the most damage as possible. In a similar vein, we're going to be taking Ground Pounder. This is purely just to increase our DPS by a little bit. Because we're able to reload 20% faster, that means we can get back into the action and shoot faster. Also, the added benefit of hip firing more accurately is a welcome benefit, and I'm going to pick this up every single time when I use my automatic weapons. Now this means we will only have 1 spot left for rank 1 of concentrated fire, and honestly, you only need rank 1 with automatic weapons, and I'll show you why. Now, because our perception is so high, we already have such high hit chance anyway. Even though we're so far away from this behemoth, our chance to hit is like already pretty high, 20% and rising because he's walking slowly towards us. But every time we shoot, it's going to increase the percentage by 2%. We're firing pretty quickly, so as you can see, we're going to be able to hit those shots. Look at that, a single mag, we killed the behemoth and we hit 95% of those shots, maybe like a few missed, but you only need rank 1, moving on. So yeah, as I said, with automatic weapons, you only need rank 1 of concentrated fire. That's why I've put those extra points into Ground Pounder. Moving on. So now into endurance, we have max rank of fireproof. I use this on all my builds, it's just so important, it's so good for survivability. Now I know I said that this build has nothing to do with survivability, but we need fireproof just because stray explosions from all types of creatures can really kill us when we're not paying attention, especially from Scorch Beasts. And the Scorch Beast Queen's sonic breath attacks definitely count as explosions, so yeah, being able to resist that and not die by that by accident when it's not in our control is definitely what we're going to be wanting to do with this build. So yeah, pop on fireproof, it's sorely needed. Then that brings us to Radical. You can choose not to have this, it's only 1 point, but I didn't know what else to do with it. Honestly, I found it pretty useful though, giving us 5 extra strength when we're down low with our radiation, gives us a little bit more wriggle room and some more carry weight to use for our item management. Basically, I'm treating this perk as a way to hold more items. It gives us a little bit of carry weight, and it's only 1 point. Think of it this way. The strong back perk is 4 points, that gives you 40 carry weight. This is only 1 point and it gives you 25 carry weight. I know what I'm going to pick when I'm strapped for points. Next up we have Revenant. This is one of the best perks for this build. If you don't know how to use this, I know Femos has a good guide on it. I'm probably going to make one myself just so that we can explain it a little bit more and get the information out there. But basically every time you get revived by yourself or another player, you get a 50% damage bonus increase, which is huge. Even though it is additive, it's still a big bonus and it's very useful when you're trying to get those speed kills on the bosses. Next up we have Rejuvenated. Now I have this purely because when I'm drinking water or anything like that to rehydrate myself, I get a massive boost to AP regen. I don't really care about eating food or getting the buffs there since that doesn't really affect me. We don't need health or strength or anything like that. But getting that AP regen from Rejuvenated is a big boost to this character and very helpful for the build. Then on to Charisma, we have Field Surgeon. Now this is your kind of, oh shit, oh fuck button. Basically, if you do get hit or do get detected, spam a stim pack, pop a few stim packs. This Field Surgeon perk will make sure you don't die. It's very, very useful. So yeah, Field Surgeon has been my saving grace. I'd highly recommend it on this build in particular. Anyway, moving on to Strange in Numbers. We're going to be picking this up when we are on a team. When we're on a team with other mutated people, we are going to be increasing our mutations by 25%. We all know what this does, it's very useful, everyone should run it in their build, only costs a single point, don't see why not. And then finally for Charisma we have Tenderizer. At max rank, your target will receive 10% more damage for 10 seconds after you attack. Very, very important perk if you want to maximize your DPS and damage output potential. Highly recommend getting it on this build. And then for Intelligence we have Nerd Rage. Now we all know that this perk is extremely important for Bloodied builds. While we are below 20% health, we gain 20% extra damage, 15% faster AP regen, and a little bit of damage resistance. And if you do need help making a Bloodied character, if you need to know all the little ins and outs of things, then I will be putting a link to a video in the top right now. Anyways, next up for Intelligence, we're going to be taking max rank of Demolition Expert. At max rank, we will do 60% extra damage with our explosives. Now I only use this because I'm using rifles with the explosive legendary prefix, just so I can get the most damage possible. If you're not using this, then you can switch that in and out for max rank of Gunsmith, or whatever else you want. You can use those 5 points elsewhere, you can make this build a little bit more tanky if stealth isn't your thing. Do whatever you want with those 5 points, it's completely up to you. But like I said, I'm using explosive rifles sometimes and that helps my damage, so I want to min-max that as much as I possibly can. Next up we have Agility, and obviously for Agility we're going to be pairing a lot of sneak related perks, so get ready for that. Firstly we're going to be taking Operative max rank. This will increase our sneak attack damage by 2.5. This is really beneficial. We're going to be in stealth all the time in this build, so increasing our sneak attack damage is definitely what we're going to be looking for. It's going to be increasing our DPS and damage potential by a metric fuck ton. In the same vein, we're going to be taking max rank of Mr. Sandman. Obviously we're only going to be using this when it's at the appropriate hours during nighttime, because this will increase our sneak attack damage by a further 50%. And then moving on, we're going to be taking max rank of Sneak. This is going to be improving our sneak potential by 75%. Obviously we're going to be wanting to have this so that we can be as stealthy as humanly possible to avoid all incoming damage. Basically needed. And then in the same vein again, we're going to be taking Escape Artist. This is like the best sneak perk in the whole game. Basically when you're running or sprinting, you will make no noise and you can just crouch every now and again to make the enemies lose sight of you. You can go back into caution if you do get detected. It's an amazing perk, definitely want to pick it up. Basically it's like an overpowered version of the muffled effect on your feet. Basically it makes the character do absolutely no noise by walking. You're completely silent by walking and running, so definitely want to pick this up. Then next up we're going to be taking max rank of Adrenaline. This is what every DPS build needs. Basically when you kill 6 enemies you get 60% extra damage for 30 seconds and you can replenish this with a single kill every now and again. Definitely a must-have perk for reaching your maximum damage potential if that is your goal. Obviously 5 points is a bit hefty and expensive. If you don't want Adrenaline, you can switch that out for something else, but I highly recommend having it. And that just leaves us with 1 perk point to use, and I've opted to use rank 1 of Gun Fu. We're really only using this for the VAT swap ability. When you kill an enemy, you immediately swap to the next target without having to re-enter VATs. It's a really amazing quality of life perk to have. The 10% extra damage we get with it is really nice as well, but honestly, we're not going to be utilizing all of that damage. That's why we're not getting it to max rank. we will rarely ever see the extra 20 and 30% extra damage if we did take max rank here. So like I said, we're only using it for its VAT swap ability primarily. Then moving on to luck, we're firstly going to be taking max rank of Bloody Mess. This will give us 15% bonus damage, and enemies may explode into a gory red paste, which is always nice to see. This perk is very useful. It'll help us get our damage potential to its absolute maximum, which is very nice. Next up, we're going to be taking max rank of Grim Reaper's Sprint. Getting this at max rank will mean that any VATS kill we get will have a 35% chance to restore all of our action points. Very, very useful, especially if you don't have a less VATS cost weapon. This will mean that your sustain with your AP will be tremendously efficient and you will be able to stay in VATS all the time. Very useful perk, I highly recommend it. Then next up, we're going to be taking max rank of Better Criticals. This is a no-brainer. We're going to be increasing our VATS critical damage by a further 40%. This is huge. We've already got so many buffs and so many synergies going with our critical shots. We can do a critical every second shot, and our damage potential with our criticals is fucking massive now with this perk, so definitely worth picking up. You need it on this build. Then we're going to be taking max rank of Starch Genes. This is a no-brainer as well. You need this on every single build because it lets us keep our chosen mutations. Because yes, there are certain mutations that we don't want on this build that will ruin its performance, and I'll get into that in the mutations section. Definitely pick this up so that we may keep our chosen mutations. Next up, we have Critical Savvy. Now this is the missing key. This is what allows us to do a critical shot every second shot. This combined with 33 luck is all you need, okay? Critical Savvy makes your critical hits only consume 55% of your critical meter. That means every time you pop off a critical, you'll still have 45% of your critical meter there and filled, and then it'll just take a single shot with your 33 luck to fill it up again. So it's very, very useful. This is why we don't need any of those other perks like 4-Leaf Clover or Psychopath. 4-Leaf Clover and Psychopath aren't needed for this build. We already get a critical every second shot, so taking crap like that is just a waste. And then for our final point, we are going to be taking rank 1 of Tormentor. This will mean that our rifles will have a 5% chance to cripple a limb. This is very useful for situations like when we want the Scorchbeast Queen to land. We're going to target its wings and we will VATS critical it to make sure that we cripple it. And if you use a thing like a laser rifle with a beam splitter, you're going to have a far greater chance at crippling her wings. It's very useful just for that little 1 point of luck. So yes, that was the build in its constant and combat ready form. It is ridiculously effective and efficient at taking down all types of enemies without giving away our position due to our focus on heavily speccing into sneak potential, stealth damage, VATS accuracy, as well as AP refresh and sustain. But now I will show you that you can vary things up and switch in certain perks for certain situations. Firstly, there are 2 variables in charisma for when you are alone or with the team. Obviously, just switch in Lone Wanderer when you're alone if you wish to, and obviously when you're on a team, revert back to Stranger Numbers and Tenderizer. That whole thing kinda goes without saying, but yeah. Next, in Perception, I've made the decision to only have rank 1 of Concentrated Fire, and then rank 2 of Ground Pounder for the reasons I have stated before. But if you wish to do so, you're more than welcome to switch in just max rank of Concentrated Fire instead of Ground Pounder. Additionally, this build does also work for Rifleman perks, if that is your forte. However, it is not as optimized as it can be for a Rifleman weapon, so I'll be making another build going over that in the future. Then, obviously, in Intelligence, we have Demo Expert that we can switch in and out for rank 5 Gunsmith whenever the situation calls for it, whether that be you just want to modify a weapon, or you want to use it just so your weapons break slower. And then finally, we have Agility, where you can switch Mr. Sandman in and out for rank 2 of Action Boy, depending on if it is nighttime or not. If you want that extra bonus stealth attack damage, then put on Mr. Sandman if it is between the appropriate hours. So yeah, that is the regular perk card selection of the build. Obviously, a large portion of them are dependent on whether or not you have fully ranked up the 3 legendary special cards I suggested. If you have not, then don't panic. This just means you'll have to miss out on Demo Expert in Intelligence, you'll miss out on Revenant, Rejuvenated, and Radical in Endurance, and you won't have enough perk points in Luck to guarantee a critical strike every second shot in VATS, unfortunately. But it is my recommendation that you strive to complete the legendary Luck first to get that crit frequency benefit, as that is the most important part of this build. Being able to dish out a critical shot every second shot is just amazing. It increases your DPS tenfold. But yeah, once everything is said and done and you've copied the perks to the absolute letter, then you will have set yourself up to be a tremendously powerful force of nature on the battlefield. so enjoy that. Anyways, we will now be taking a look at the legendary perks I've chosen for this build next up. Alright, I've shown you regular perks and now it's time to talk about the legendary ones. So first off, obviously we're going to be taking max rank of follow through. This is absolutely the most important perk in this legendary perk system for this build. We're going to be taking this perk to grant us 40% extra multiplicative damage after we shoot a target while we're sneaking. Keep that in mind, this is 40% extra multiplicative damage. Everything else I've talked about besides Tenderizer in this build has been additive. Tenderizer and follow through are the only things that are still multiplicative with this new damage formula, so it's very, very powerful. Next up, I've taken Funky Duds. I've only got it at rank 1 at the moment because honestly that's all you need. This isn't really important, you could swap this out for something else, but because we are bloodied, we're at such low health and we have no survivability in this build, I have found that poison have been like my kryptonite. Poison and explosions, random explosions, are this build's kryptonite. Those are the things that you just can't control and they will just kill you when you're not paying attention. Especially in situations like when you're at the Scorchbeast Queen and she does her crop dusting attacks. Those poison little flares will definitely kill you if you're not paying attention, so picking up just even rank 1 of this will help negate that damage. You can rank it up all the way if you want and you'll take absolutely no poison damage in certain situations. But yeah, I found it pretty useful, so that's why I have it. Again, feel free to switch out Funky Duds for something else. Okay, now let's talk about Far-Flung Fireworks. So I understand a lot of people don't like this perk, it flings bodies around, makes it harder to loot, stuff like that. I get it. I've only got it because I look at it this way. At max rank, it will be a 20% chance to deal more damage. That's what it is, and my goal with this build is to deal more damage, so even though it is chance-based, when I kill an enemy, and if that enemy is surrounded by a group of other enemies, that's a 20% chance that all those other enemies are going to be dying. So it does a lot of damage, and it's just basically a chance-based AoE attack. It's really useful in my opinion, especially when you're in situations like this. If you've got super mutants or ghouls or whatever the case may be, if you've got them all stacked up next to each other and this activates, you're going to be dealing like 150 damage to each enemy, and that's a lot of damage when you take into account the already insane damage we're already dealing, so having that just stacked on top as a chance-based proc, very useful in my opinion. Like I said, you don't need this, you can put it in for something else, maybe something quality of life like Ammo Factory, or maybe something else like Survival Shortcut. It's really up to you, but I've chosen to use this. Alright, now here comes the conversation that I've been dreading, why I've picked 3 legendary special perks. So first up, we've got Legendary Intelligence. This is going to give us +5 to Intelligence and let us pick 5 points worth of Intelligence regular perks. So I've picked this up purely because it will let me do this right here. Slot in max rank of Demolition Expert or Gunsmith depending on what I'm using. That's really the only reason I've done it. There's nothing really else in the Legendary Perks system that I thought would really benefit this build more than having Demo Expert. So that's why I've used that. Like I said, this part here is completely not needed. You don't have to do this. It's honestly on the back burner. If you do want to do it last, because having Demo Expert and Gunsmith is not that important for this build. Similarly, I have Legendary Endurance. Same deal, it's going to give us 5 extra Endurance. This one is a little bit more important though because it does let us be able to slot a few more useful perks. For example, with Legendary Endurance I am able to slot in Rejuvenated, Revenant, and Radical. That's my 5 points worth of extra endurance points right there. So Revenant, very useful for when you want to get that extra 50% damage when you're fighting bosses. Rejuvenated, very important for keeping your buffs active if you want extra AP regeneration. Radical, very good for my carry weight. So I thought that those 3 perks benefited me way more than having something else in the Legendary Perk system. I thought that it benefited me way more than having anything else in here, which is honestly understandable. There's nothing else that is truly that useful for a Commando. Again, like I said, you don't have to have this. You don't have to have Legendary Endurance. You can slot that in for whatever the hell you want. Go fucking bananas. But this one right here, Legendary Luck, you need this. This should be, if not the first, the second thing you max out for your Legendary cards, because it will let you get 33 luck so that you can, you guess it, get a critical shot every second shot. Now basically without Legendary Luck, my build would look like this. See, Legendary Luck is gone, and now I have only 12 luck to my name. So that is what has been used there. Legendary Luck allows me to put 3 more extra usable points in luck, which I make use of with Starch Genes and Tormentor, but it also gives me the 5 extra points that I need to tie me over to give me 33 luck. As you can see there, I'm only at 28 now since I've taken the perk off. And now I'm going to put the perk back on. I should have 15 luck again. Again, I've only got 3 usable points with that, but that's okay. 2 going to waste is not that big a deal. It's not the end of the world. Slot those back in, and we are at 33 luck. So yeah, that's just that in combination with my armor, my unyielding, my shielded raider under armor, all that stuff in combination is what brings me to 33 luck and lets me get a critical shot every second shot. So that's the legendary perk cards I've chosen for this build and why I have chosen them. Obviously, there is not many legendary perk choices that benefit this playstyle in particular, which is what led me to spec heavily into the legendary special cards to gain more benefit from our extra regular perks. But if they ever do release more legendary perk cards, be on the lookout for an update of this build. Anyways, that brings us to the part of the video where I will show off my mutations and why I have chosen them. So firstly, you will have noticed that I did not pick up Class Freak. And I will say this same thing every time I do a build video. It is unnecessary and a waste of 3 perk points, especially since they can be better spent elsewhere. This is because I only pick mutations that benefit this build directly. We have no need to pick ones that don't benefit our build. All the negatives that do come with our chosen mutations don't actually negatively affect us since they are aspects of our build that don't matter, which I'll get into in a little bit. Also, while we do have Stranger numbers slotted in, all of our bonuses here will be increased by 25% while we're on a team, which is great. Anyway, let's get into it. Firstly, we are going to go with Adrenal Reaction to synergize with our Bloodied playstyle. This is a no-brainer and will make our Stimpaks more effective at low health and will grant us 50% bonus damage the lower our health gets. I will then be picking up Bird Bones for the bonus 4 to agility, which in turn grants us more sneak potential and VATS usage. The reduced fall damage is just a bonus. And then I have Eagle Eyes for 25% more VATS critical damage and plus 4 to perception. It's a great mutation for this build, absolutely made for this build in fact, so definitely don't pass that one up. We will then also be picking up Marsupial and Speed Demon. Obviously, what build doesn't utilize these 2 mutations? More jump height, 20 more pounds of carry weight, and faster reload and movement speed are great advantages to have, so definitely don't ignore those 2 mutations. Then finally, we have Herbivore. This is required for this build if you want to get the most bang for your buck through limited time food buffs like Blight Soup, as this will actually double the effectiveness those foods grant. Additionally, I want to mention that you are welcome to use any other mutations in addition to the ones I have stated here. Just know that they don't really have any benefit for this build besides the ones we have already picked. However, I do want to mention that if you are a sneak build, which you probably are if you're watching this video, then you should not have Plague Walker, as this mutation is currently bugged, and even if you don't have a disease, it will alert enemies to your presence and lower your stealth potential, so yeah, don't use Plague Walker on this or any stealth related build. Which then brings us into the topic of weapons. Now obviously this is a commando build, which means we will be using fully automatic rifles as our main weapon. Like I said though, feel free to substitute the perks in for the rifleman perks or even the archer perks if those are your desired weapon of choice. The weapons I run on this build are going to be things like handmaids, the fixers, 45 caliber submachine guns or combat rifles. Basically, any rifle that can be silenced and converted into an automatic weapon is going to be the go-to weapon for this build. Hell, you can even use a fully automatic silenced pipe rifle on this build and it will do just fine, annihilating things like Scorch Beasts, super mutants and all of those creatures. However, I will occasionally switch over to some more exciting weapons like automatic laser rifles, plasma rifles or railways if I want to switch it up and challenge myself, as these weapons cannot be silenced, so we will not be able to rely on our stealth potential to survive. I will be making multiple other versions of this build in the future, one of which will allow you to be a tank focused commando so that you could primarily use those unsilenced weapons in a more run and gun playstyle, which is pretty neat. So be on the lookout for that. Also, before we get started, I have to mention, yes, the current meta is to use an Enclave Plasma Flamer rifle. This thing is a beast for sure, and we all know that. As you saw at the start of this video and with the background footage and probably other YouTubers' videos, it's an absolute monster. However, it is currently bugged and is benefiting from Rifleman cards instead of Commando cards, which is what it's supposed to be using. And this is a bug that Bethesda are aware of, so I'm assuming at some point in the future, the Plasma Flamer and Enclave Plasma Flamer will make the switch to Commando perks, which won't alter the damage or anything, it'll be the exact same. It'll just mean that they will be properly using the Commando perks instead of Riflemen. So, since that is the case, I'm just going to treat those guns as a Commando weapon until then, because they are Commando weapons, they are just using the incorrect perks. But anyways, as you can see here, I have all of my Commando weapons outfitted with Bloodied being the prefix, because after all, this is a Bloodied build, so to get the most bang for our buck, damage-wise, we will need to make sure all of our rifles are Bloodied. Now you can use quad, anti-armor, executioners, or even some of the new legendary effects like aristocrats if you wish to, but nothing else will grant you as much per shot damage DPS as Bloodied does. Except in certain specific situations like anti-armor, that will be incredibly, marginally more effective against boss type enemies like Earl Williams because it will be cutting through their incredibly high damage resistance. Anyways, going from there, the second star that we want on all of our rifles vary a little bit. Any of the following list will work exceptionally well and will complement this build tremendously. We can either have the explosive legendary effect for 20% more per shot damage in a small localized AoE, or we can have the 25% faster fire rate legendary effect to increase our DPS by an insane amount, or we can just use the 50% extra VATS critical damage effect to bolster our already insanely high critical damage even more. And as you have seen on your screen, I have absolute god roll fixes with all of these secondary effects that I use as my main weapons for this build, and they are all treating me very, very well. I tend to use the explosive one for regular enemies just to ensure that they die in one hit, and then I tend to use a mix of the faster fire rate and 50% VATS crit weapons for boss battles to increase my DPS, as they both work very, very well and do their job well in those situations. Then finally we have the third star effect. Honestly, you can go for 15% faster reload or 15% faster VATS crit fill if you want to. The faster reload does feel kind of pointless in my eyes since our reload speed is already so small. However, the 15% faster crit fill does have some legs to stand on, because if you are not able to reach 33 luck with the use of the legendary perk card, then substituting in this third star effect on your weapon will bring you over the edge and allow you to make every second shot a critical hit. However, if you do have 33 luck, then this third star effect will be completely pointless to use and won't help us at all. So, if you have the optimal setup, then the best third star effect without a doubt would have to be 25% less VATS cost, to help massively with our VATS sustain. This effect paired with our high AP refresh speed and some weapon modifications that I'll touch on soon, will allow us to remain in VATS, targeting enemies without any worry for our AP. As you can see in the video, I really have to work for it if I want my AP bar to completely drain. Now, I mentioned desirable weapon modifications. I have a whole video going into detail for this topic, so click that if you want to know the hows and whys behind it. But to summarize, you should be using either the automatic prime receiver or the powerful automatic receiver for the most damage. And then for the barrel, we will want to use aligned long barrels. We will want to use the forceful stock, a reflex for the sight, a silencer, and your choice of either a stinging magazine or a swift magazine. Both will treat you well under certain circumstances, but yeah, this setup will allow you to stay in VATS even longer on top of everything else. Now for backup weapons or secondaries, I do like to run a vampire's automatic weapon for some nice burst healing. If I'm doing daily ups or if I'm not sneaking, I've gone ahead and used a vampire's 25-25 10mm SMG for those reasons, and it treats me very well, keeps me alive when I'm not sneaking. Additionally, for the purposes of crippling Scorchbeast wings, including the Queen, so that we can force them to land, I highly recommend using a beam splitter laser rifle of any kind. This will be your utility weapon for crippling the wings and forcing them to land. Now this is all good when it's said and done, but I understand that a lot of you watching this won't have this gear at this current point in time while you are grinding to complete this build. So I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't worry too much about getting those god roll weapons or god roll armor pieces just yet. Just use whatever you can in the meantime. Even a 1-star bloodied automatic weapon will treat you perfectly while you're working to perfect this build. So be patient, go on trading sites like Reddit or Discord, maybe even Facebook, and once you have yourself situated and are truly at the end of the game, then you can try your hands at trading for those god roll items. Which now brings me to armor. In terms of the actual armor type, I highly recommend using either leather armor, combat armor, scout armor, or preferably and ideally the covert ops scout armor. Purely because they will provide you with some nice resistances, but will also allow you to slot in the shadowed modification, which does indirectly make you better at sneaking. I'll touch on this more in a second, but furthermore, in for our legendary effects. Obviously, we'll be trying to ensure that each of our 5 pieces of armor has unyielding on it for the prefix. If we do, then this will increase all of our special stats except endurance by 15, which will grant a lot of separate bonuses. However, the only bonuses we actually care about on this build is the bonus accuracy to VATS we gain from perception, the extra stealth potential we gain from agility, and the extra VATS critical frequency we gain from luck. As I explained at the start of the video, those 3 are very important. Anyways, for the second star, we will want to ensure that each piece has increased AP refresh speed. This will help bolster our VAT sustain and allow us to use our weapons to their fullest potential longer and more often. Which I understand will be hard to accomplish, but it is the goal for this build. Then finally, for the third star effect, we will want to be using the effect that makes you harder to detect while sneaking. Now, don't bother trying to get this on all of your pieces of armor like I do, it doesn't continually stack. Only one effect on one piece of armor will actually register as of right now. If this does change in the future though, obviously try and get it on all pieces. But anyway, one piece of armor with this effect will increase your stealth potential by 15%, and the rest is up to you. You could have some utility effects or maybe sentinels on the other pieces of armor if you wish, it's up to you on that front. Now for the modifications. As I said earlier, we will be trying to make each piece of the armor shadowed, because each piece that is shadowed makes the amount of light hitting your character 5% less effective at getting you detected, which is just awesome. To put that simply, this means that with a full set of shadowed armor, you are 25% harder to detect in the dark. Now obviously the magnum opus for armor for this build would obviously be the covert scout armor with the legendary effects I already mentioned. The covert scout armor comes with a native shadowed effect naturally, and then you can place the shadowed modifications effect on top of it, again for even more stealth effectiveness. With a full covert ops scout set of armor that is also shadowed, light that hits your character will be 50% less effective at getting you detected, which is pretty damn strong. Anyways, for the other modifications on your armor, you should use the ultralight mods to increase your AP even more. There's nothing else really worth using on the limbs. Then for the torso, if you're fighting the Queen or Earl Williams, you should switch in between dense and asbestos lining to help ensure your survivability with those bosses. And now we're going to move on to the topic of under armor. There is no better option than shielded raider under armor in terms of combat effectiveness for this build. This under armor will increase your perception and agility by 3 and then your luck by 1, which we are utilizing to help get us to 33 luck. However, if you're really struggling to reach 33 luck, then you can use shielded vault under armor, which will give you +2 to luck instead of 1. However, that will mean that you'll sacrifice the +3 to perception and agility, making you slightly less combat effective in those rights. But like I've been saying, if you do everything I've done, then you shouldn't need to use the vault suit to achieve 33 luck. Anyways, onto the backpack next. Honestly, I don't use anything besides the high capacity backpack plan on this character. Using the armored or insulated would be a waste here because this character makes primary focus sneaking, which means we would never see any usefulness out of those backpacks anyway. So, I've opted to use the high capacity to increase my carry weight by 120. But feel free to use the grocer's backpack, refrigerated backpack or chemist backpack if you need to carry a bunch of food or chems. Now finally for this topic. While you are leveling up and working towards that perfect armor set, like I said for the weapons, don't stress about it too much. You'll be doing just fine with even something similar like mismatched 1-star unyielding. You don't need a perfect set of everything to be combat effective. Although, if you want to push yourself to the absolute peak potential, having gold roll armor does give a noticeable boost. What I'm trying to say is, just be patient and don't worry about it too much. We all have to start somewhere after all. Now let's talk about the limited time buffs that you can farm and apply to your character and when the situation will call for these buffs. All of the buffs I'm going to list are what you can take to give yourself the most combat effectiveness possible. You will be able to overclock your damage output even further, which is kind of insane since our damage is already so massive. In my opinion, you won't need to use any of these buffs in your day-to-day gameplay. There are no regular enemies in the game that will require you to buff your damage or use any of these buffs at all. So the only time I recommend that you use any or all of these buffs is during a boss fight, be that the Queen, Earl, or any new bosses that come out in the game. Anyway, here is the list. Feel free to screenshot it for later reference if you want to. Firstly, we will be taking the Guns and Bullets 3 magazine. This will grant us 30% extra damage on our critical hits, and if you've been following this build correctly, you should be dealing a critical every second shot. This magazine only works for ballistic weapons however, so if you're using a laser or a plasma or any other energy weapons, then you'll want to use Tesla Science 7, which grants 30% extra crit damage to all energy weapons. Whatever magazine you choose will last 30 minutes. Anyways, next we have the Bobblehead. We will be taking the small guns one for 20% extra damage with ballistic weapons. Obviously, if you're using energy weapons, then substitute this in for the energy weapons Bobblehead. Bobbleheads will last for 1 hour. For our alcohol, we will be taking either Ballistic Bock for 15% extra ballistic damage, or High Voltage Hefe for 15% extra energy weapon damage, depending on what weapon you are using. And as for our food buffs, when it comes to damage, we cannot stack different damage types of soup on top of each other, unfortunately. They do override each other so that only one can be active. So I highly recommend using Blight Soup for that 20% extra critical damage that lasts 1 hour. Also, this damage can be doubled to 40% with the Herbivore mutation, which is why we have chosen Herbivore for this build as I stated earlier on. Additionally, if you want to take another food buff to increase your AP regeneration speed, I recommend either checking out Corn Soup, Company Tea, or maybe even Sunshine Oil or some canned coffee if you have enough laying around. You shouldn't need to increase your AP regen anymore, but just in case you are attempting a quick time on a boss, those are going to be your best options. Now when it comes to chems, we will be taking both Overdrive and Psychotats, and it is important that we take them in that order to ensure that they stack. Overdrive will give you 15% extra damage overall, and then 15% extra critical damage on top of that, while Psychotats will give us 25% extra damage, as well as +3 to perception, and some damage resistance, which is always nice to have. And that will be every buff item that you should be using on this particular build. If I have not listed certain chems like Calmex, it is because they do not stack with this current setup that I have right here, and will mathematically give us a smaller damage boost than what I have chosen here. I have laid out the best damage and combat orientated buffs for this build, and if they are all taken at once, you will increase your already insane DPS and combat effectiveness by a huge margin. But like I said at the start, you shouldn't be using this all the time because it's not really warranted. The only times I recommend going all out with these buffs is if you're trying to kill a boss faster than normal. At this point in the video, we have covered everything you need to know to create the actual build itself, but now I'll be going into detail about strategy in different scenarios and talk about how this build performs in different endgame content. First up is Daily Ops. This build is a tricky one for Daily Ops since we absolutely rely on stealth to survive. We are the ultimate glass cannon and we can be killed very easily, which makes it very hard to perform in the uplink Daily Op when the enemies have the piercing gaze modifier. This allows them to ignore all of your character's stealth abilities and they will be able to detect you no matter what. So if you're going to be doing the uplink Daily Op, I recommend going to full health temporarily or switching out some sneak perks for some defensive perks temporarily, which can be easily done at the perk loadout machine. Unfortunately, this game mode in Daily Ops is this build's one flaw. However, the other Daily Op game mode called Decryption is this build's bread and butter. You will perform insanely well when this Daily Ops is active, so don't stress at all there. Now let's talk about boss fights. As a lot of you probably already know, this is the build that I used to get my personal boss speed kill records before the nerf. And now here, post nerf, with a little bit of adjustment and adaptability, this build is still able to retain its place as the DPS king. With some slight adjustments to the build, we can use the new Enclave Plasma Flamer meta to take on Earl in as little as 20 seconds if you're good enough. So yeah, as you see, it is still supremely powerful when it comes to putting down bosses. Now this is going to bring me to strategy. For the Queen, it's best that you use a beam splitter laser rifle or something else that is a rifle that shoots multiple projectiles, and use it in VATS to target the wings so that we may cripple the wings and force it to land. Either once the Queen is grounded or beforehand, it's probably the best time to pop all of your buffs so that you can deal maximum damage. Anyway, once it's grounded, you will keep a proximal distance, not too close and not too far, and just VATS target the head for extra headshot weak spot damage, and spam the living hell out of your VATS critical button to min-max your damage output overall. In terms of survivability at this event, it is highly recommended that you have the fireproof perk on so that the sonic breath attacks from the Scorch Beasts won't damage you. It is also recommended that you put on Funky Duds to gain poison resistance against her crop dusting attacks. If your stealth potential is as good as I've displayed in this video, you should never be detected directly, but you can still get damaged by AoE attacks like the two I previously mentioned. As for Earl, we must ensure that we have the asbestos lining chest mod on our armor so that the falling embers attacks don't hurt us. As for fighting Earl himself, it's best to pop your buffs just before you encounter him. Once the buffs are popped, you should try to cripple both of his legs using the laser or whatever you have at your disposal. While both legs are crippled, Earl will be temporarily unable to move, and it's at this point that you'll want to fan the hammer and VATS target his head and slam your VATS criticals to ensure the most damage output possible. And that's it for the bosses. This build is probably the best build in the game at the moment when it comes to boss killing. However, this part is not a guide on how to maximize your effectiveness for speed kills, this is just survivability and DPS tips in general. Now onto the topic of mobbing. Mobs are just all the regular non-boss enemies in this game, ranging from rad roaches to ghouls to super mutants and everything in between. This build is able to wipe them all out in an instant without even breaking a sweat, so long as you are hidden and VATS aiming for the enemy weak spot, be that the head, chest or whatever it may be for that particular enemy. I do have a guide for this which I will link in the top right if you need help learning what are the weak spots. In addition to regular mobs, this build is easily able to take out harder mobs like the Mylurk Queen, Super Mutant Behemoth and Sheepscorch without a worry in the world. Before I end the video, I would like to reiterate some points. Firstly, the point of this build is to min-max our damage per second and damage per shot output by as much as humanly possible. To do that, we have to make use of a lot of legendary special perks and also have to sacrifice our survivability in terms of straight up tanking. However, this is okay because instead of focusing on straight up damage mitigation, we have found solace and are utilizing a different method to increase our survivability. And that is by min-maxing our stealth potential. In doing this, we don't have any need for damage reduction perks, power armor, secret service armor, or even a large hit point pool count, because by having such fantastic stealth potential, we will never get detected in the first place, and therefore we will never need to tank any incoming damage. But as I said, that does come with a cost because if for whatever reason you do get detected, you're gonna die. That's just the caveat that comes with this build, unfortunately. Additionally, this build makes full use of our VATS abilities. Specifically, we have overclocked our VATS frequency and can deliver a critical shot every second shot, which has come at a small cost of needing to grind for the legendary luck perk. However, I think that is incredibly worth it and well worth the price of admission. This build focuses on having as much perception, luck and agility as humanly possible. However, in saying all of this, the build's only shortcoming is that if you do get detected, like I said earlier, you most likely will die. So I hope you're ready to use this incredibly min-maxed high risk, high reward stealth commando. If you are building this build for yourself, I encourage you to return to this video and utilize the timestamps if you need reminders on any topics. If you'd like to check out my other build videos, the playlist will be linked down below alongside the link to the actual build via the Nukes and Dragons website. That's going to do it for me guys, a massive shout out to all my current Patreons and channel members. You legends help fuel the content on this channel and you help me make videos just like this. Also a special shout out to Distinction for being one of the top donators on Patreon. Thank you mate, I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support me on Patreon or become a channel member, be sure to check that out in the description along with my other social medias. And be sure to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed. I've been Tia, and I'll catch you in the next one. Welcome to Valhalla.